How I found my first angel investor for my startup and the 7 lessons that I've learned after reflecting on that and raising money multiple times across multiple ventures. I was a wee little lad. I tried to use an accent for that, but didn't work. I'm going to give you the 7 lessons. Don't worry. But I was in art college and I was learning to be an animator and a digital artist, 3D animation. Toy Story was the rage. It was all about that. And I was in college and decided, hey, I'm going to raise some money. And the fact of the matter is, this goes to the first lesson because founders are always asking, how do I get the first money in? How do I meet the investors? I don't know any angel investors, et cetera. So I'm going to just share with you one of my stories and I'm going to explain the lessons that I've learned and how you can learn from what I've learned and try to reach out and meet your first angel investor and hopefully get your first investment. What was great was this venture had a happy ending to it. It did get acquired and we were able to make an exit and the investor made some money. I made some money, actually more money than I could have ever imagined making as a college student. Not enough to be Elon Musk or independently wealthy, but enough to get the taste for startups and keep going. But here's how it worked. I'm a college student and the reality is that it was just dumb luck. So what happened was I'm in a class and he's a co-founder with me to this day, financial partner, and we're working and we're just working on a computer program. I don't know what it was. And I just lean over and I look over and I go, you're just doing that all wrong. And then, I let him know. So I just had to just lean over and get in his business. And then we struck up a conversation. And next thing you know, we're chatting and we became buddies. And I found out that he was an investor. In fact, he was doing very, very well for himself as an investor across multiple things, commodities trader, foreign currencies, stockbroker, etc., and was used to writing those checks and making investments. And that's the first lesson. So, what was important as I've looked back and how I've raised money up to this point in time is that I had domain expertise. I was smart enough and I had the expertise to lean over and say, you're doing that wrong. So that demonstrated my domain expertise. And that's what's applied to my other startups. When I fully dive in to learn about the problem I'm solving, the ideal customers, the personas, the industry, and I become an expert, investors like that. And that's what's important about this lesson is do shit first. Okay? Do it first. I know so many founders that say, I'm going to raise money for this because I got this great idea, but they know nothing about the industry. They know nothing about the technology. And I hate to say it, this is how I feel about, impact founders who want to solve climate change. Well, going out and saying, I'm going to solve climate change is one thing, but having the domain expertise do it, that's a complex issue. We all care about it and it's important, but how much expertise do you really have in solving climate change? Maybe it's doing something related to solving climate change, but quite frankly, when a founder comes to me and asks for investment and they start telling me that they care about all these things that are going to change the world, but they don't have the expertise behind it, I check out. My eyes glaze over because I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to give this person money, and do they even have what it takes to pull this off? And so I've just learned over the years when I am good at something, I can raise investment a lot easier when I'm doing that thing. For example, for a while since going and we sold the company, that I went to go work for a children's edutainment company, and I won a whole bunch of awards. Well, the company did. I was the animation director, did a lot of the catalog, won film festivals, this and that. So I was an expert in animation and creating videos, and we had worldwide distribution and all those things. So when I raised money for my own set of videos and the startup that way, well, guess what? It was a lot easier for me to raise money. So go out and do it. If you don't have the domain expertise, you're like, Ed, I don't have the domain expertise, but I want to do a startup in that area. Go get it. Go work in the industry. I know people who went and they volunteered and they just took crappy jobs to understand the problem, to wrap their arms around the problem, immerse themselves in the problem, and gain that domain expertise. Because when you're talking to an investor, that goes a long way, saying, I've experienced, doing this and that, and this is what I did to learn about the problem. Next, the investor was pre-qualified before pitching. So I found out from the angel investor, he was an investor. He's my dear friend now, but back then he was just a guy with money. I had money in my eyes. And I found out that he had been an investor, or he was associated, or one of his partners was invested in an advertising agency. So he understood the venture that I wanted to do, which was a digital animation agency. And we were one of the first ones to do, Flash. Back then it was Shockwave, animated cards and greeting cards. You play a 30 seconds clip and you click and you go to mp3.com. You can buy the song. Like, that's I just dated myself back in the .com 1.0 web 1.0 bubble. All right. So I wanted to become an agency, and I just said to him, look, you know what it's like to invest in companies and have an agency. Give me some money and I'm going to start an animation agency. I won't have to look for a job after I graduate, and I'll make you a pile of money. That was pretty much my pitch. But he was pre-qualified. I knew he knew what I was talking about. And so this is important. Do your research, because so many times founders pitch investors that, just don't invest. Their investment thesis isn't going to line up with the founder. So there's a lot of information out there. But yeah, some people come and they pitch me, and I've never invested in that space. I don't know anything about it. Not interested. Now, if you come to me with something in crypto, well, just so happens right now, 80% of my investment, personal investment, my portfolio is in crypto. Well, I know a lot about that, so I'm intrigued by crypto investments and what have you, but it takes a lot to get me to look outside the things that I'm comfortable with. I like the Warren Buffett mentality. He's like, only invest in what you really, really know. And therefore, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, Berkshire Hathaway, don't invest in crypto because they don't know anything about crypto. Well, I've learned a lot about crypto and I believe in it. I'm bullish on it. So I invest in crypto. You see how it works? So pre-qualify your angel investors before you even pitch. Don't waste your time, anything like that, because guess what? You might lose your chance to make an impression and you blow it, when you could maybe explain to them what you plan to pitch and say, I know you're not in there, but they may say, you know what? I know some people who like investing in that space, and they'll give you a referral. So pre-qualify before you pitch. All right. Lesson 3. Lesson 4, that's the investment thesis alignment. So they're pre-qualified. And because I knew they were investing in this angel investor, I wanted to know what size of checks they're used to writing, etc. And guess what? Their investment thesis aligned with the opportunity that I was presenting. And I made sure when I pitched and gave all the information that it aligned with them, right? And so one of the projects, I found out that this investor liked, my friend loved collecting animation cells, loved animation, and was in animation school. Not because he wanted to become an animator, because he was passionate about it. He had the funds and he said, I'm just going to go get a degree in animation. Right. I thought, okay, isn't that interesting? And I saw the types of stuff that he collected and what have you. And so I pitched him on this character animation studio. We're going to do comic books. We're going to build this ecosystem. And he happened to really love comic books, and his investment thesis on what he would want to invest with, and my pitch. And slowly, guess what? I adjusted what I would do to align with his proclivity to want to write checks in our space, right? In our industry, painted the vision, all that stuff. And so we did this comic book and, all these things. And it was a lot of fun. But I made sure that my startup aligned with his investment thesis, right? Made some choices, made some adjustments. And a lot of times founders will say, well, I'm only going to take, smart investors who understand this space, et cetera. Do you really have the luxury of being picky? Like, I don't want you to compromise what you're doing, but if an investor is willing to invest in a founder and say, let's start working on the solution together, well, guess what? That's an opportunity. Maybe you're going to learn something. So try it out. All right. Don't be a snob and say, no, I'm only going to take one type of investor. See if you can align your startup with their investment thesis. Next, problem solution pitch. Like I told you, no deck, no deck. And so there were no pitch decks back in the, I didn't even know how to do a pitch deck, let alone, it's like down to a science now. But back then, we are just wheeling and dealing ideas on napkins. So I just pitched problem solution, and I told them what I thought. This was my problem solution assumption, that this technology was going to be big, and we could do this, and we're going to combine 3D animation with this, etc. And he got it. I didn't have to show him a deck, things like that. And he happened to be learning the different technology, and I had this whole idea, problem solution of combining new 3D animation technology. Is going to be big, Toy Story, etc. And then also, one of the things that we had as an investment thesis, or this was our assumption, and what we were going to invest in with the money, was the fact that we didn't want to do 3D spinning logos, which was like the big thing, corporate animation, like 3D spinning logos for your PowerPoint presentations or your video presentation. We're like, nah, we're not going to do that. That's one of the problems is animation studios get involved in doing, all this 3D animation corporate logo work. We're going character animation, and we are holding out until we can sell character animation. And that's what we did. And so we ended up getting acquired by a company that recognized our character animation portfolio, which we wouldn't have if we were doing, 3D animated logos. So that was my problem solution. And I just explained, how we were going to do it. And this is the equipment we need to buy, etc. And it worked out fantastic for us. So problem solution pitch, I didn't need a deck, but angel investors, just talk to them problem solution and get obsessed with the problem solution. Really refine and know your problem and solution. And when investors ask you questions, what about this competitor and that competitor? Your goal is to say, yeah, I've thought all that through, and I know something they don't know. And this is the reason, and just give me a little bit of money so I can prove it to you. So that's what we did. Next, precise use of funds. All right. So at that level, what happens is you're not going to get enough money just to, have money in the bank and decide on a regular basis to move funds around, et cetera. That'd be nice, right? But typically with an angel investor, you want to be very direct and succinct with precise use of funds. So what I did was I said, we're going to buy this machine. We need this type of computer. This is what we're going to be able to do, et cetera. We're going to live lean and mean. And let me tell you, I lived lean and mean. Gosh, there were months that, I was living off student loans, but I was pulling $1,000 paychecks, right? Our commitment to character animation, it paid off, but boy, was it tough. And so we were just basically, using the funds precisely to get to that next milestone. And so invested in machines and rendering machines, towers and tape decks and all that stuff. Back then it was like tape, right? There was no such thing as digital. And so we are, investing in those, and we're very precise with how we're going to do it. And I made lots of funky deals to save us money, precise use of funds. And we are very disciplined with our money, and angel investors like to hear that because they don't got millions of dollars to spread around. They've got a certain amount of money, and it's a portion of their net worth that they put in there. They want to know you're managing their money like they would manage their money. And most likely they have that money because they're really good at budgeting and using their funds properly, et cetera, and saving, a penny here and there, everywhere. And you want to demonstrate that same behavior. Next, big vision with small steps. So I was telling the angel investor, here's how big we could get. Here's my experience. This could be worth millions and millions of dollars, but here are the small steps that I'm going to take to get there. So I was always bouncing back and forth between, yeah, we could do this, big vision, et cetera. And then there were small steps that I was going to do. And, it was a funny thing. I'll tell you the story. One day I show up to the angel investor's house, and he was sitting there, trading. And he said, let's go to the architect and design a studio. And he had done really well trading commodities the night before. It was fascinating. Coffee, precisely. And then he said, I've always wanted to build a big, garage and storage thing, but I'll, slice off some of it in the back for a studio for you, because I was showing him that we needed space. we needed space, and I was going through the little things. And so he was willing to contribute. And I didn't even have to ask for that money for space expansion. He said, let's go do it. And because we demonstrated that we were really good taking those little small steps with that money and, stretching that dollar, et cetera. So he just kept chunking in money, and he kept doing that until, obviously we were acquired. So big vision, small steps, you need both. And a lot of times, what happens is founders paint this huge vision, and then the founders or the investors hold them to that. And you set up massive expectations, and you say, I got this big vision, but I could be completely wrong. This could be, I could lose everybody's money. But here are the small steps that I'm going to take to make sure that we don't do it. And that's how I've raised money over and over again. I've even made the investment smaller. So someone said, okay, could you take 50 grand? I go, you know what? Let me show you what I can do with 10 grand, and let me reach the next milestone. And then you can invest, more after that. So I'm even going to, even though I got a big vision and they got a big vision, I'm going to slow it down and throttle it. And I'm going to say, let me show you what I can do with smaller steps, with smaller amounts of capital. It was, in fact, this angel investor who taught me the phrase, trust me with 1% of your capital, and I'll earn your trust for the 99%. Right. Because, he's managing people's money, et cetera. And so that's what I would do. I'd say, I need to show you what I can do with 1% of your capital before I ask for the 99%. And angel investors really like that, especially if they are good with their money and they've made money in other types of investments. So those are my 7 lessons that I've learned. Now, even though I say the reality is dumb luck, I was good at what I did. And so a lot of times, they say fortune favors the prepared. And so you want to be good to be prepared for when those lucky bounces come your way. In other words, have your pitch deck down, know your investment, know your strategy, all these things, so that when you happen to meet an investor on a plane or whatever, you know exactly what to say. So be prepared. So even though that it was dumb luck that I happened to be sitting beside the first angel investor in that class, I was prepared and I knew my stuff. So then I learned all these other lessons. So even though a lot of times luck comes into play, these other lessons, lesson 1 is a lot of luck comes into it at times, but lessons 2 to 7 are going to prepare you to take advantage of those opportunities. So hopefully this was helpful from my own experience. And I know I often give a lot of advice telling founders what to do, and I don't often explain how I did it. This is my attempt to explain how I've done it. And hopefully you've learned something and you can apply these lessons. Let me know in the comments what you think, if there's any other topics you want me to cover. And as always, if you're part of startups.com, our community founder-based accelerator, feel free to book office hours. We're having office hours every day to talk about how to go and secure funding. And if you're not part of the community, just check in the description. You can sign up yourself and see what it's like. See you in the next video.